to the show. Welcome to Not Just Nintendo, Episode 8. Not Just Nintendo, a video game podcast where we talk about Nintendo, but other video games as well. I am your host, George, the Ginger Ninja, everybody's favorite YouTube creator who hasn't made a real video in like a month. Actually, I guess it's been over a month. It's been like 2 months. But anyways, hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is why I already said the episode. I need to stop. A few things to get out of the way. First of all, to address last week. Last week was the Switch 2 presentation episode. It was an episode that was specifically focused on the presentation. Obviously, I normally put episodes out on Wednesdays. Last week, I had pushed it to Thursday because it aligned better with when the presentation was happening. But then, I couldn't get it out on Thursday because I was sick and I wasn't quite done with it. And my voice was messed up, so I didn't want to record. So Friday, I had to finish it. Well, actually, I didn't even finish it then. I was like, I'm just going to put it out because I was still sick. So I had to put it out on Friday, shorter than most episodes. And I'm sorry that it was shorter than, because I was expecting to go much longer than most episodes last week, but instead I went for a shorter time. So instead, we're going to be talking more about Switch 2 today. And I'm still sick, just by the way, just to get that out of the way. I'm still sick, so if my voice sounds messed up, which it definitely does, my voice sounds messed up. So I apologize about that. We're just going to have to kind of deal with it. Because I don't want to like cancel the podcast. It's not like I'm, here like unable to think or anything. Like I'm doing okay-ish. I'm doing well enough that I can physically record the podcast. The problem is just my voice is being messed up. So as far as that, we're just gonna have to deal with that. So please, bear with me here. But I guess this is what happens when you have a weekly podcast and when you're the solo member on it. I mean, I've considered bringing other people on. I guess if anybody reached out to me and wanted to be on, I'd be like, all right, fine. Well, I should rephrase that. There's a couple people that I know in person that I would not let on, but most people, if they reached out, or even somebody I didn't know, I'd be like, all right, fine. But I just, it's not something I expect to get reached out to. But anyways, so I don't have any plans necessarily to bring people on, but I may at some point in the future. For right now, I'm just going to keep it to myself. I'm also considering another big thing for the podcast. I'm considering moving the episodes till Tuesday instead of Wednesday, possibly even Monday. And originally I picked Wednesday because I felt like it was a good time in the week because I could work on the podcast episode over the weekend when I don't have school, and then if need be, I could finish it up on the first couple days there of the week, right, on Monday, Tuesday. And that's worked out well-ish. The problem is I want to come back to making scripted videos and video essays and stuff, and most of those videos, I want to put them on Friday, but if I happen to finish 2 a week, then I want to put one out on Wednesday and one on Friday. And I don't want to put out a video on Wednesday if I've already put out a podcast episode, or if I have to put out the podcast episode after the video, because then it'll take views away from the video. So I think I'm not going to say this definitively, and it's probably not going to happen for a couple weeks at least, but I'm considering moving the podcast episode. So if anybody has any strong opinions as to whether it should be moved or if it shouldn't be moved, you can either email the show at notjustnintendo@gmail.com, that is notjustnintendo@gmail.com, that is all one word, or you can just leave a YouTube comment if you're watching on YouTube, or a Spotify comment if you're on Spotify. I haven't got any questions besides a spam one that I'm not going to answer because, it's Cameron. Anybody who's been on the channel, Cameron. So, not going to answer that one. It's completely unrelated and not good. So, anyways, but any real questions, please feel free to leave them. Even if they're jokey questions, I might still answer them. So, I'm just going to say, as a general rule of thumb, I'll answer any of your questions. So, as far as today's episode, let's talk about today's episode. Like I said already, we're going to talk more about Switch 2. I'm going to talk about some good things, maybe a couple things I'm a little concerned about, but mostly it's positive here with me. I'm a positive guy right now. I'm kidding. I'm actually quite negative. But on the Switch 2, I'm pretty positive for the most part. I have my problems with it, but I've been pretty positive. And I also have a game that I beat. I think it was actually before last episode came out, but I didn't talk about it last episode because I wanted to talk about Switch 2. So instead, we're going to talk about it today here, and I'm also going to talk about some other games that I haven't beaten, but I'm working on, and I've continued and stuff. So we're going to be talking about all that stuff, but I'm going to have a quick little music break with some nice music, and then we'll be right back to all that. All right, hello everybody. I am back. I am here to talk about the one game that I beat since last time we talked about games I beat. I did mention Super Mario Brothers last time I talked about games. I beat it again. It's not something I want to talk about because I've already beat it before. This is not the first time. But there was a game that I beat for the first time, and it's a game that a lot of people have been playing here in the last couple of months, and that game is Donkey Kong, more specifically Donkey Kong 94. Of course, the official name is Donkey Kong. It's just called Donkey Kong, but to not be confused with the other games in the series and with the other game that is just titled Donkey Kong. Most people call it Donkey Kong 94. So for the purposes of this, that's what I will be calling it as well. I beat Donkey Kong 94 on March 30th in about 3 hours 45 minutes. This is my first time beating it. And Donkey Kong 94, I think a lot of people are pretty familiar with this game. It's on Game Boy. And a lot of people say it's one of the better games on the Game Boy. Some people have even gone as far to say that it's the best game on Game Boy. That I would say that's not true. I think I mean, Link's Awakening, I don't know if it's as good on Game Boy. You know, I haven't actually beat it on the Game Boy. I've beat it on Switch. But I played a little bit of it on Game Boy, and it seemed fine. And I'm sure the Oracle games are probably good as well. And Super Mario Land 2 is a pretty good game. So there's some competition for sure. But generally, games on Game Boy kind of suck. So Donkey Kong 94 is definitely one of the better ones, if not the best. But yes, Donkey Kong 94. I beat this game here fairly recently. It's actually been a little while now, though. But that's okay. Here we are to talk about it. And Donkey Kong 94, I'm sure a lot of people know that this game was added to the Switch Online app back at the end of February, I want to say. Maybe at the beginning of February. I don't know, somewhere in that time frame. So a lot of people have been playing that game recently. I was one of those people that started that game recently. And I've got to say, it's a good game. It's a solid game. It's a puzzle platformer. If you're not familiar with Donkey Kong 94 for whatever reason, it's kind of like, well, it is the precursor to Mario versus Donkey Kong, those games that started coming out on Game Boy Advance and then continued through the DS generation. Now, since so many people have played this recently and shared their thoughts recently, I'm not gonna like beat a dead horse and go into all this detail about how great this game is and sing its praises. But I will say that I really enjoyed the puzzles. I mean, this is very much a puzzle platforming game, right? Obviously, this is like one of the quintessential puzzle platformers. And I mean, the game starts with the 3 or 4 levels or whatever that were in Donkey Kong in the arcade game on arcades and also on NES and Atari and everywhere else. Um, and so it was really neat how they started with those few levels and then they elaborated or expanded on it, and not even just expanded on it, they totally changed it up. I mean, you went from the, pretty lackluster, pretty simple levels in the arcade game to these like well-designed platforming puzzle levels in the Game Boy game with all these other mechanics. There's mechanics where, I mean, you can like backflip, you can do handstands and jump higher, you can hit a block and then place a bridge down. I mean, there's a lot of different things. And basically, in each level, the idea is you have to find a key, and then you have to take that key and find a door, and then you leave the level. And I think there were like 9 worlds, maybe, of varying lengths of levels. I would guess there were probably like 40 levels or so, maybe 50. So it's a pretty beefy game for the Game Boy. I mean, there's a lot of games on Game Boy that are like very, very short. I mean, you got like Super Mario Land, you got Kirby's Dream Land, right? And I mean, as time went on, the Game Boy games definitely got longer. So 1994 is much later on the Game Boy. But it's still pretty impressive to see a game that's lengthy with a lot of content on a system like the Game Boy that had such limited memory and stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's a really solid game. I'd recommend anybody play it. It's almost kind of a shame that it's not been remade or remastered in any way. I mean, I guess Mario and Donkey Kong is the continuation of that, so maybe there's not much reason, but I do think from an outsider perspective, from someone who hasn't played any of the Mario Donkey Kong games, this game does seem better. So, and I've heard that from quite a few different people. So yeah, Mario versus Donkey Kong, not Mario versus Donkey Kong, sorry, Donkey Kong 94. I recommend everybody play that game. It's a fantastic game. One of the best games on Game Boy, and one of the best experiences you can have on Switch Online. Or I guess you can play it on the original Game Boy as well if you want, but I would recommend playing it on Switch Online. So, anyways, but yes, Donkey Kong 94. I told you I didn't have a whole lot of different things to say about that. Oh, I guess I can talk a little bit more. There were different themes and stuff of the levels as well. Um, and this wasn't a Game Boy. I don't think this was ever a Game Boy Color game because there wasn't a whole lot of color at all. Obviously, many Game Boy games had a Game Boy Color option, like a color option if you had the Game Boy Color. Donkey Kong 94 is one of them, so there is color, but it's like barely. Like there's a blue background and then there's like an orange key. I mean, it's like pretty minuscule, a couple colors, but not much going on. But that's okay. You don't really need the color. It's more about the level design for Mario vs. Donkey Kong. And I've heard bad things about the controls and the feel of, playing Mario in the Mario vs. Donkey Kong games. But I've got to say, Mario vs. Donkey Kong feels great. I mean, I would say it feels pretty similar to Super Mario Land 2, the Six Golden Coins, if anybody's played that. And if you haven't played that, what are you doing? You should play that. That's a great game. So, anyways, Donkey Kong 94, I would definitely recommend it. That's the only thing though that I've beat too recently because I was working on the game collection filing. I've talked about that a little bit in the last couple weeks, where I was going through my entire retro game collection and filing it in a Google spreadsheet. I'm actually almost done. I'm getting there. I think I've probably got another good hour and a half or so of work, and then I'll be done. So I'm almost done. And I do intend to make a video in July. It'll be one of the things I do for the 5-year anniversary of the YouTube channel. I intend to make a video showing off the collection. So we'll see if that. I mean, I'm assuming that's going to end up happening, but I don't have to worry about that for. Well, actually, not that. It's not really that long until that. It's only 3 months. It's not that long, actually. Um, it's actually crazy. We're like coming up on stuff like that. But anyways, yeah, school is starting to wrap up. That's kind of nice. Other games, I guess, that I have played over the last while that I didn't beat. I could talk a little bit about it. Well, actually, I should say, after beating Mario vs. Donkey Kong, I got into a game on Game Boy called Alleyway, and I'm not intending to beat this one or anything, so I'm just going to talk about it real quick because I thought it was kind of fun. It's basically a Breakout clone, and this game is also on the Switch Online service. But it's like a Breakout clone, Breakout from the 2600 for those who don't know what I'm talking about. Um, and on the 2600, you'd had this paddle at the bottom of the screen, and then there'd be a ball that would come down in the middle of the screen. You'd hit it with the paddle. You could move the paddle left and right, but not up and down. And you hit the ball. You'd hit the ball, and then the ball would go up and hit these blocks at the top of the screen. And there'd be different color blocks and stuff. Some of the blocks take multiple hits, and some of them break in just one hit. But the whole idea is to clear the entire stage. And Alleyway is basically the exact same thing. It was an intelligent systems game that was published by Nintendo way back on Game Boy. I almost think it was a launch title for Game Boy. I could be mistaken, but it was definitely early on. And of course, there's no color option, it's all black and white. Um, and Mario actually is kind of in the game. When the paddle you have like 4 lives or whatever, and Mario is the little life icon, but also he jumps on the paddle um, when you first start the game. Like he jumps on the paddle and then he jumps off and you start the game. So Mario makes a little appearance. I just wanted to shout out Alleyway because I started playing it and I was like, this is a great game. And it's level based. I don't think Breakout was level based. I think it was just endless. But yeah, this game is actually level based. So there's like pre-designed levels with those different sections, just the different blocks and stuff in them. And there's different things that can happen. Some of the levels, like it will scroll across the screen, and so the blocks will reappear, like the Pac-Man effect, right? It'll get to the side of the screen and it'll reappear on the other side. There's a lot of cool little minor mechanics that they introduce in this game. So I didn't get that far in, and then I was like, okay, this is something that's getting hard. I don't think I want to bother 100%ing this. I was talking about Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine and Kirby's Avalanche and Dr. Mario World and Pokemon Puzzle League. I've talked about those a couple episodes ago, and like those are all games that I started playing, and then it just got to the point where they were like a little hard, and I just didn't want to like spend time beating them, and it just wasn't something that I was super into, so I just dropped a ball, and I've dropped this one as well. But it was just another one that's kind of fun to pick up for a little while. I'd be like, oh, this is a neat little, mechanically it's really well done and stuff. So that was all I had to say about Alleyway. I just kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit. And then the other stuff that I've been playing as of late, I did. I don't know if I mentioned before that I started Mario Kart 64 because I've beaten just in the really last year I beat Mario Kart not Super Circuit, sorry, Super Mario Kart. And then this year so far I beat Super Circuit, and I intend to beat Mario Kart 64, and then I'll do DS. And I'm hoping that on Switch 2 with the GameCube games, I'm hoping that they'll put out Double Dash. I imagine, I'll talk about this a little bit right now. Double Dash, I was thinking about it, they announced the GameCube Switch Online app. And I was like, why is Mario Kart Double Dash not one of the ones they talked about, right? And then it occurred to me, they're probably at first I was like, oh, maybe they're worried people won't buy the new Mario Kart if the Double Dash is available. But then I realized that's kind of stupid. So I have two different theories as to why Double Dash isn't there. Theory number one, maybe it's something with the online infrastructure where they have to add something strange to Double Dash and they don't want to have to, or that they are dealing with it, but they aren't going to be ready on day one. And then the more likely theory for me is that the Mario Kart people that would want to play Double Dash, or at least a lot, those people are all going to be busy on Mario Kart World, so they want to wait until Mario Kart World loses some popularity. Obviously, people will be playing Mario Kart through the whole generation, but I'm sure people will play it a little bit less a year or two in, and so at that point, they'll introduce Double Dash on the online service, and that'll be the new thing that takes off, and the Mario Kart people will maybe check that out for a little while. So I think they want to just not oversaturate the Mario Kart stuff. I mean, they also have Kirby Air Riders coming out, right? So there's like several different racing things. I don't think adding Double Dash on Switch Online is necessary because, and they also have F-Zero GX on there. So I don't think it's quite necessary. And maybe it's also possible that we're going to get a new F-Zero game, and they wanted to put in a racing game on the Switch Online service for GameCube, but they had to pick between F-Zero or Mario Kart, and they wanted to make an F-Zero game to help it gain more relevance again. I don't know, that's possible. Those are all just theories. Are any of them the truth? Who knows? I don't know. Maybe they just kind of just didn't think it was one of the ones they needed to start with. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's other reasons as well, but that was my thought. But anyways, I want to play Double Dash as well. I want to play all the Grand Prix and all the Mario Kart games, and then in Mario Kart DS, I'll do the story mode stuff as well, the mission mode, I should say. That's my plan, is to do that with all the Mario Kart games. I do have them all. I own every Mario Kart game in some form, except for Super Circuit and Double Dash. Super Mario Kart, I only own the European version for some reason. So that's a weird one as well, but I do have it, I guess, in some capacity. But the good news with Super Circuit and Super is that I have them on Switch Online. So the only one I don't have access to is Double Dash, and of course it's super expensive. So I'm really hoping they add it to the service, because then I'll be able to play that, and I'll be able to play all the Mario Kart games as long as I get Mario Kart World and on the Switch too, right? So as long as I play that, I'll have been able to play all the Mario Kart games. Maybe even this year. I don't know. I don't know if I want to blast through a ball this year, but we'll see. There's still a lot of year left. It's only April, so there's a lot of time. I'm assuming I'm at least going to beat Mario Kart 64, and Mario Kart World, maybe Mario Kart DS. So if they add Double Dash, I might do that as well. Otherwise, maybe not. So we'll see. But that's all cool things to mention. So yes, I don't know if I mentioned that I started Mario Kart 64, but I did, and I think I'm almost through. I think I'm about through 50cc. There's 50cc, there's 100, and there's 150. I think there's also mirror mode on Mario Kart 64, but I don't think I'm going to worry about that. I'm just going to do the CCs because, I don't know, that's what I enjoy doing. And I think that counts as beating it. It maybe doesn't count as 100%ing, but it counts as beating it, so that's good enough for me. The other thing that I have been working on, one of the other things, there's a few things, I have been back to Ocarina of Time. The last couple episodes, I've talked about how I had stopped on Ocarina of Time because I was a little bit stuck on looking for gold Skulltulas because I was pretty sure you needed 300 rupees, which you could only get with a giant's wallet that you can only get from having 30 gold Skulltulas. I thought you needed that to continue into the water temple. But as it turns out, I completely didn't know about the ice cavern because I haven't played this game before. And so I could just go to the ice cavern, and that allowed me to get what I needed to go to the water temple. So I'm in the water temple. I got a little stuck in the water temple, as everyone does. And for those who have played Ocarina of Time, yes, I do know about the little room underneath the pillar in the center room. So it's not that what I'm stuck on. I'm stuck on other stuff. So I'm going to get through it. I haven't looked up a guide or anything yet, so I probably will just do that, and I'll probably be able to get unstuck. It's just not something that I really am looking forward to sitting down and trying to figure that out. So, that's how it goes with Zelda for me. I get into a new dungeon and I'm like, "Oh, cool, right, new dungeon." And then usually I get pretty far in, but sometimes I don't get very far in at all. Sometimes I actually get through the whole thing without a guide, but not always. I would say actually more often than not, like probably 80% of the time I have to look up a guide. Um, on Zelda dungeons, but sometimes it's only for like one thing, other times it's for like almost the entire dungeon. So it just depends on the dungeon. The only exception is like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, those dungeons you don't always have to look up guides for. But anyways, so yes, Ocarina of Time, making good progress on. I'm finally making progress on it again. So, I guess I kind of was like with Wind Waker going to be on Switch 2, I was like, I really need to step it back up with Zelda. So I went back to Ocarina of Time. And after Ocarina of Time, I need to go back to Minish Cap as well. And I'd like to beat both of those before Switch 2 comes out and Wind Waker. Um, and I mean, who knows? If I finish Ocarina of Time and Minish Cap and it's still like April, then maybe I'll go play one of the Oracle games. I don't really know how long the Oracle games are. I guess I can look that up real quick, because I'm not really sure if it would be worth. Like, if it was early May and there was only a month left. I mean, I don't know that I'm going to get a Switch on day one. I might not get it for like a month or so, but I imagine I'll get it pretty early. Um, but like, I don't really know if it's worth in the beginning of May playing an Oracle game, or if I should just wait until after Wind Waker. 15 hours for Oracle Seasons, and then it says 17 for ages. Okay, well, I don't know. So what I'll probably do is try to finish Ocarina of Time and then finish Minish Cap. I'll try to finish those two Zelda games before Wind Waker, and then when I get Switch 2, I'll play through Wind Waker, and then after that, I'll go play some other Zelda games. I don't really know which one I want to jump into after Wind Waker. Of course, if they remake one or they drop something on Switch Online, that could definitely be a deciding factor. But I think after I play the Oracle games, I'm kind of running out of Zelda games that I have that I can play. I mean, I guess I can always go back to Tears of the Kingdom and try to play that. So that's probably what I'll do, actually. I'll probably play Tears of the Kingdom. Other options would be Twilight Princess, which I think at this point I'm just going to wait until Twilight Princess either gets remastered or comes to GameCube. I'm guessing it's going to come to GameCube, so GameCube Switch Online, I mean. So that's probably where I'll end up playing it. So maybe I'll just play Wind Waker and then play Tears of the Kingdom, and those will be my Zeldas for the year. Those four. I think that's enough. I don't think I need to push it anymore, unless, of course, Twilight Princess comes out this year, which is possible. Obviously, when I first saw that Wind Waker was coming to the GameCube Switch Online, I was happy because I was like, okay, we can finally play this game, right? But at the same time, I was a little bit saddened, I suppose, that it wasn't the Wii U remake. And I don't think it's the end of the world, but it would be nice to have the Wii U remake instead. And then, of course, my third thing that I thought was like, oh my gosh, but where's Twilight Princess? And that's when it occurred to me, oh wait, they're probably just staggering it so that there's, more content, right? Because dropping those two games at the same time wouldn't do anybody any good because everybody would just play one and then the other, right? So I guess there'd be more choice, but at the end of the day, you're just, it makes more sense to drop them at different times because then you can pick one and then play the other one months later after it comes out, like they'll last you more time. So that's kind of where I'm at with Zelda games, I definitely want to play Wind Waker when it comes out, or when it comes out on Switch Online, I should say. Um, so I'm kind of chugging through Ocarina of Time, and it's great. I'm not, it's a fantastic game. Minish Cap, I was enjoying. I don't think it's quite as good as Ocarina of Time, but it's pretty good. So I was enjoying that. Um, but yeah, Zelda. I've been getting into Zelda here the last couple of years, and turns out it's pretty good game series. Turns as it turns out, I'm actually also kind of considering. I bought Hyrule Warriors, the first one, on Wii U. Although I guess I should probably buy it on Switch as well, right? If I actually want to play it through. Maybe it'd be a better idea to buy it on Switch if I want to play it through. I don't know. I'll look into it because I heard the Switch version's a little bit laggy. But is it worse? Is it just as bad as the Wii U version, or is it significantly better? I don't know. If it's significantly better, then I'll buy it there as well. But otherwise, maybe I'll just play it on Wii U. But yeah, I want to play original Hyrule Warriors and then go back to Age of Calamity, restart that. And I think my problem with Age of the Calamity in the first place was that I was trying to do everything, and I don't think it's the best idea to do everything in Age of Calamity because it really does kind of get a little old, I suppose. You kind of you kind of get a little bored after a while, trying to do everything in that game. But as far as doing the main missions and a few extra things here and there, I think it's a lot more fun. So maybe what I'll even do is when I get to Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, I'll just play it over the course of like many, many months and have that as a little side thing that I jump in and out of, play like an hour at a time or something, every few days or something, not have it be something that I'm playing all the time. That could be a good strategy for that as well. But of course, the reason I want to play these Hyrule Warriors games is because we also have Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which I don't. Did I talk about that at all last week? I can't even remember if I did. I probably did a little bit. But yeah, we have Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Imprisonment. Um, that's coming out. I think was it this year or was it next year? I can't remember. I'm not like particularly excited about that, and obviously I have to play Tears of the Kingdom first anyway. Um, I'm not a huge Hyrule Warriors guy, but it's fun enough, right? I mean, it's interesting. Oh, they didn't say any sort of date. We didn't even get like I assumed it was going to be 2025 or 2026. They would have told us. Okay, IGN says quarter 4 2025. I believe them on that. Okay, sounds good. Quarter 4 2025. So we've got that coming relatively soon in the grand scheme of things. I'm not going to play it then, I'm sure. I'll probably wait, but that's something to think about, right? But yes, so Ocarina of Time was another thing I've been playing, and the last thing that I've been playing a lot of recently was Persona 3 Reload. Of course, I've talked about Persona 3 Reload probably like at least by name, like I've mentioned it once, probably on every episode of the show so far, I would guess. Maybe not, but maybe. I don't know. But Persona 3 Reload, it's a great game, turns out. I've been really plowing through it. I jumped back into it on Friday. Today is Tuesday. Jumped back into it on Friday, and I was on like August 1st, right? Because of course it's a calendar system, right? Everybody knows that. It was August 1st when I started the game. Um, when I came back to the game on Friday, it was August 1st, and then yesterday, so I had the weekend and Monday. Yesterday, I was on September 5th. So I like ran through over a month just in a couple short days. So I'm making a lot of progress on Persona 3. I'm like flying through that game because I'm just having so much fun with it. It's a really good game. So I imagine I'm actually going to wrap up Persona 3 possibly this month since I have a school break coming up. I know I'm only like halfway through, but 30 hours this month seems definitely reasonable, especially considering there's a school break coming up just at the end of this week. So next podcast episode is going to be during my break, so I imagine I might have a couple Switch Online things to talk about next time because I'll probably have played more games. So that'll be exciting. Stay tuned for that. But yeah, I don't have anything like I'm not going to really talk much about Persona 3 until I beat it. I think I'm going to probably make a whole YouTube video when I do finally beat it. Maybe not right away, but eventually I want to make that video. But I'll probably also talk about it as like a 15-20 minute segment on the podcast as well. It's still a fairly recent game in the grand scheme of things. It's only a little over a year old anyway. So, although I was just at Walmart yesterday. I went to Walmart and Persona 3 Reload was $25. I was like, seriously? Like they're just giving that game away. It's still pretty new. Of course, at Walmart, at least my Walmart, I assume at all Walmarts, over Black Friday they had a sale on a lot of PS5 games, and there were some like newer PS5 games that were on sale for 35. I think Astrobot was one, Persona 3 Reload was one, Spider-Man 2, I think The Last of Us Part 1 remastered maybe. There were a few different ones, but there was a lot of stuff. Of course, all of them I wanted, and so I got some of them for Christmas and stuff. But anyways, so yeah, I was like, it was nuts. I thought it was nuts then that they were giving away Persona for $35. Now they're giving it away for $25. So I don't understand. This game is only a year old, and it's like I don't know what's it like less than half the price. It's like almost a third down. It's almost two-thirds off. Like 60% off. So it's crazy, crazy. They're doing these crazy sales, but whatever. It's almost like it's a Ubisoft game or something, right? But yeah, Persona 3 Reload has been my PS5 thing for quite a while now. And when I'm done with that, because I pretty much only play one thing on PS5 at a time. And then these days, I used to play more. But yeah, after Persona 3, I've got a few games on my desk here. I have on my desk for PlayStation, I have Persona 3, I have Yakuza 0, and Yakuza 0 obviously is coming to Switch 2 as well, and I'm only like an hour in, so I was actually considering just buying it on Switch 2 and play it on there instead, because I assume the Yakuza series, at least the first few or so, are going to come to Switch 2, I should say. If they started with Yakuza 0, the assumption is that they're going to put out Kiwami and Kiwami 2 and maybe the collection, right? 4, 5, and 6. That's the assumption, at least if they'll get to those eventually. So I was like, well, it'd be pretty cool to play all the Yakuza games on Switch 2. But then I thought about it again. I was like, well, Yakuza 0 on Switch 2 is probably going to be a full $70 or $80, maybe 60, yeah, minimum, right? And so even if that goes on sale because it's a Sega game, I can't imagine it'll be very cheap. And so, I just bought this game for like $25 like just a few months ago. It would be pretty crazy for me to go spend another 60 on it, I don't know. So I probably just play it on PS5, and if Kiwami and Kiwami 2 come out on Switch 2, I'll play them there probably instead. And maybe years down the road, I'll be like, well, I have Yakuza on Nintendo consoles, and the only one I don't is Yakuza 0, so maybe I'll just go buy it again. But I don't want to buy it again right now, at least, right? So I think I'm just going to play Yakuza 0 on PS5. But after Persona 3 Reload, the other options, Yakuza 0, God of War, which I did start. I didn't get very far in. And then I have Astrobot on my desk, and I have Assassin's Creed, the Ezio Collection. Astrobot, I started. Assassin's Creed, I did not. As far as the Ezio Collection, I really bought it for Assassin's Creed 2 because there's that famous glitch on Xbox 360, and it actually even happens on modern Xboxes too. Well, I mean, 360 is modern, but it's not current, right? But Assassin's Creed 2 has that glitch where if you connect to the internet while playing it, it like breaks your whole save file and stuff. So I had to deal with that after playing it for like 7 hours. So that's why I bought the PS4 version through the Ezio collection instead. So my plan here is when I finish Persona 3 for PS5, right? I'm going to play Astrobot, and I'm probably going to 100% Astrobot. I started it back in December, even. No, December? January. I started it in January. No, I started in December. It was December 31st I started it. I started it in December, and I worked on it through January, and then I kind of fell off of it. I was still enjoying it. I think it's one of the best games, like, ever, seriously. Like, it's an amazing game. I would say it's probably in the top 20 for sure. It's one of the better 3D platformers that isn't Mario. I mean, it's not the best, but it's one of the better ones, right? Um, I was enjoying it a lot, but I just kind of got to a lot of RPG stuff. I was playing a lot of RPGs, and so I kind of just fell out of the loop. I went back to a period of playing a lot more Switch than PS5, and so I got away from it. But after Persona 3, that's my plan, is to play Astrobot. So yes, that is all of the games that I have been playing, or all of the games that I plan to be playing soon, because I talked about that a little bit as well. That's all the stuff I've been playing recently. The only other thing that I can think of that I was putting a lot of time into that I haven't come back to since I got busy with the game filing and stuff was Metroid Prime Remastered. I haven't come back to that one yet because I was very stuck on that, and I wasn't entirely sure how I was going to get unstuck. So I do intend to come back to that, but I just have not yet. So I will be back to that at some point. With that though, I think we can maybe talk a little bit about. I want to talk a little bit about Mario Kart World, and about Donkey Kong Bonanza, and maybe some other things. I'm sure, knowing me, I'll probably start yapping about all sorts of stuff, right? So let's talk a little bit about Mario Kart World, right? So, I talked about in the episode, I think it was the episode right before the Switch 2 presentation, I talked about Mario Kart specifically. I was like, Mario Kart 9, because that's what it was, that's what we called it at the time. I was like, Mario Kart 9 can't launch a console, because my opinion, and I've talked about this a lot before, is that a Mario Kart game is something that everybody has to buy when they get a Nintendo console, right? That's no secret. But it's not something that people are actually going to go rushing to buy a console for. Um, and after seeing Mario Kart World, we had there was the 5 seconds we saw back in January for the Switch 2 reveal, and then there was the quite substantial information about it on the Direct last week. Came out a week ago when you guys are seeing this. There was all that information, and there was the Nintendo Treehouse presentation. Is it a presentation? I guess. But there was the Nintendo Treehouse Live stuff as well. After seeing a lot of that footage and hearing a lot of people, well, in the other thing, people went to those live play sessions and stuff where Nintendo was showing it off, and a lot of people were talking about it from those. So after hearing these opinions and stuff, it definitely seems like Mario Kart World does actually have the potential to launch this console. Now, I still think having a 3D Mario, obviously a 3D Zelda, right? But they didn't have that ready. But having a 3D Mario at launch, or potentially even Donkey Kong Bonanza, I still think that would have been a stronger offering on launch. However, I think Mario Kart World can work. And basically, it's because of how expansive the game seems. I mean, it really does seem like, first of all, the online infrastructure is getting completely revamped for the Switch 2. I want to say completely revamped, right? Because the Switch 1, Switch Online stuff, they're carrying that over. But I'm saying, like, it's getting an overhaul. Like, it's getting completely improved in a lot of different ways. So, with all these improvements on the online service, I'm sure that the online service for Mario Kart are going to be great. Um, so there's that, right? Of course, there's also the fact that they're going to have all these Grand Prix. I don't know. I'm assuming it's going to have less Grand Prix than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe did with the DLC. But I imagine it'll still be plenty of Grand Prix. I mean, we might even know the number as well. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't watched a lot of this Treehouse footage. I might at some point, but I haven't yet. But still, even if it does have less Grand Prix, it's probably still going to have quite a bit of single player content. Now, on some level, I am a little bit disappointed because I'm looking at Mario Kart World and I'm like, am I really going to engage in a lot of this like open world stuff? And I say probably not. I don't think there's going to be like missions and stuff in the open world. It really seems like the free roam thing where you get to drive around and just, I don't know, mess around. So that, and also it seems like there's an option to drive between courses in the Grand Prix. That stuff does not seem like something that I'll engage in much because it seems like a waste of time. It might be interesting to try out once or twice, but beyond that, it doesn't seem like it'll actually be very interesting. So I imagine Mario Kart World for me will be mostly about the Grand Prix, and maybe I'll play it online a little bit here and there just to kind of see how the online stuff is. And it's always fun to play a few rounds of Mario Kart online. It's not something I like to do a lot though because I'm not super into online games anyways, right? But I might try it out a little bit. And I mean, knowing me, right? If I beat Wind Waker and Donkey Kong's not out yet, maybe I will try it out a little bit just to, I don't know, play stuff on my Switch too, right? So I might, but I don't imagine I'm gonna like play a ton of Mario Kart World. I'm imagining some people are gonna have like 100 hours in it by the end of the year, possibly even like 200, right? But I'm probably gonna be somebody that finishes the game and has like 25, maybe 30, right? Like I don't think I'm gonna play it that much. 30 hours is still quite considerable, but it's not quite as much as a lot of people will. So that's my take on Mario Kart World. And I guess it's a little bit weird to talk about Mario Kart World when we have this presentation. I keep saying presentation or direct. I get them mixed up. But there's a direct for Mario Kart World just next week. I mean, it's coming out the day after. A week from this comes out. A week from the day after this comes out, I should say. So here's the thing. It's not important enough a direct that I want to delay the podcast episode. So I'm just going to put the episode out normally on Wednesday next week. And then I'll actually have a live reaction to that Mario Kart World Direct next week because I'll be off of school. So I have a break. So I'll actually live react to that Mario Kart World Direct, which is great. And I'll probably put that live reaction, the audio from it. Well, I don't know. No, I was gonna say I'll put the audio in the podcast feed, but I probably won't actually. I'll probably just record another little bonus where I talk about the presentation, the direct, sorry, and then put that in the podcast feed and on YouTube. The only thing I could see potentially if the direct isn't really that exciting, which I think it will be exciting, but if it's not very exciting, I might just not make a bonus episode, and I might just put that stuff in episode. I guess we'll be at 9 at that point. So we'll see. I don't know yet what's going to happen with that, but there's a few different options. So just stay tuned, see what happens. Play it by ear. I guess this is what I can say about that. So yes, Mario Kart World. I guess I'm excited for Mario Kart World because I'm excited, for Nintendo to have this big online game, and a lot of people are going to be talking about it. And I'm excited to see the new things and stuff. But as far as actually like being excited to play Mario Kart, I mean, I'm not really that excited about it. If there is like mission mode stuff or a big single player offering, then I might actually be excited for it after watching this presentation. But as it currently seems, I'm going to be like, yeah, somewhat excited, but not like absolutely like, losing my mind. I mean, there's definitely some people out there that are like, oh my gosh, no way. Mario Kart, we've waited 11 years. And I mean, yeah, I guess I've also waited a long time, but it's not something that I've been like super impatient about. I guess on the topic of Donkey Kong Bonanza, I'm a little bit more excited for that one than I am Mario Kart World. The thing with Donkey Kong Bonanza, I don't feel like there's been quite as much information or footage. Well, I mean, there definitely hasn't been as much, right, as there has been for Mario Kart World, and I'm sure that's partially because Mario Kart World is the launch game, right, and Donkey Kong Bonanza is the thing that's coming later. But also, I think it's just because Mario Kart World, more people are going to play that, right? So I think it's a bigger thing for them because Mario Kart World is sooner, because it's at launch, and because more people will play it. I think that's a lot of why they haven't talked quite as much about Donkey Kong. But we saw a little bit of footage of Donkey Kong at the presentation, right, back a week ago. We saw a little bit of Donkey Kong, and in the treehouse, we saw a little bit of gameplay footage, I guess, from Donkey Kong Bonanza. And Donkey Kong Bonanza, I've got to say, it looks like fun. I'm actually not entirely convinced that it's going to be my thing. Like, it seems like with the destruction and stuff, I'm not entirely sure that it's going to be very interesting. But, I mean, it is going to be interesting. Is it going to be very good? I don't know. I mean, I'm not entirely sure. But I do think it'll be, at the very least, fun to try. And I'm a Donkey Kong. I like Donkey Kong, right? So I think having another Donkey Kong game is always going to be good. Here is my issue with Donkey Kong Bonanza, and I've got a couple. So a lot of people were analyzing the environments and the animation style and the particles and all this stuff, right? And basically, it was based off that everybody pretty much confirmed that this game is being made by EPD Tokyo. EPD Tokyo, of course, being the 3D Mario team. So Donkey Kong Bonanza is almost certainly made by the EPD Tokyo team. The question is it fully made by the EPD Tokyo team, or do they have external help from like Goodfeel? Right? I would assume this is fully made by the EPD Tokyo team, but part of me kind of wishes they had help as well. And here's the thing, right? On some level, I am happy that this is made by the EPD Tokyo team because we haven't gotten a game from them in a long time, and historically their games have been good. So in theory, this game will be good, right? But I'm also not very happy that this is the EPD Tokyo team because a few reasons. First of all, I think Retro Studios could have made a better Donkey Kong game. First of all, because they're the Donkey Kong people nowadays, right? Although they haven't made a Donkey Kong game in like 30 years or something. It's not 30, it's like 10. But still, that's problem number one. Problem number two, why the heck is EPD Tokyo not making a Mario game? I need my Mario 3D platformer, right? I guess it's possible they made the Donkey Kong game and the Mario game, but then I'm a little bit concerned about the quality of each, right? And then the other problem is that um, does this mean that EPD Tokyo is either done with Mario or they're just thinking that, they can rotate? Like, so what? The next game's gonna be Mario, but then Donkey Kong, and then Mario, and then Donkey Kong? Like, then what? Does that mean we have to wait, 12 years for each, maybe even more for each one? I mean, like, we get a Donkey Kong game, and now we don't get another one for like 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, 16 years? I don't know. But then as far as 3D Mario, we don't get 3D Mario for another 8 years? I mean, like, surely that doesn't seem like a good thing. So, I guess it's possible they could make both, but I think it would probably be better if they just put those extra resources into 3D Mario. And then the other part of me, well, I guess it's, overlapping, I'm also kind of the opinion that, like, maybe I don't trust EPD Tokyo anymore. I used to be like, EPD Tokyo, right? It was like they were these gods, right? I mean, they made Super Mario 64, they made Sunshine, they made both the Galaxy games. 3D World's still pretty good. They made Bowser's Fury's pretty good, but Super Mario Odyssey, I really don't like Super Mario Odyssey, and I really don't like Super Mario 3D Land. So they've definitely had some misses in recent times, for me at least. Like Super Mario Odyssey, I really don't like Super Mario Odyssey. So, and that's like their most recent game. So this team that historically has made games that are my favorites of all time, but most recently they made a game that I really didn't like and greatly disappointed me. That kind of concerns me, right? Like who knows? Maybe I think maybe they're just not as good anymore, or maybe they're only good with Mario, or I mean I don't know. Like I don't entirely know what to think. So I'm a little bit concerned with Donkey Kong Bonanza and also with Mario because of Donkey Kong Bonanza. Um, it's also the 40th anniversary of Mario, and so you would think that they would want to have a 3D Mario game, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. I mean, traditionally they've done stuff for Mario's anniversaries. Every 5 years, Mario has a new, something for his anniversary. Like, I mean, what was it? I don't know was there anything for the 20th anniversary? I'm not sure, but the 25th anniversary, that was a big one. They had Super Mario All Stars for the 20th anniversary. Or sorry, for the 25th. The 30th anniversary, they had those amiibos. They had like Mario Maker and stuff. The 35th anniversary, we had Super Mario 3D All Stars and that Game and Watch. So, oh, and Super Mario Brothers 35 as well. So presumably they'd want to do something for the 40th anniversary. It seems like a pretty big anniversary, but who knows? Maybe not. And then, I mean, Donkey Kong, the anniversary for Donkey Kong is next year. So I'm definitely a little bit concerned. I'm not concerned about Mario going away or about Mario becoming less popular. Obviously, Mario, Mario is Mario, right? But I am a little bit concerned about the health of the 3D Mario series, right? I mean, look at like the 3D Mario series. It used to be one of their better performing series, obviously behind like Mario Kart, but it was one of the top performing series. Um, However, and it used to outsell like 3D Zelda, right? But nowadays, 3D Zelda has been way outselling, or maybe not way outselling, but it's been doing just as well or a little bit better than the 3D Mario, and they've been getting more consistent releases, believe it or not, than 3D Mario, which is insane. Who would have thought? 3D Zeldas have been coming more recently than 3D Marios. So, I don't know. It's definitely weird. But I guess on a slightly more positive note, let's talk about Donkey Kong, right? So Donkey Kong, of course, he's getting this Donkey Kong Bonanza, right? And I would love to say that Donkey Kong Country is going to get a new game soon, but who knows? I mean, I think it is definitely possible, right? I mean, we got Retro Studios, they've got Metroid Prime 4. I honestly think Metroid Prime 4 may have been done for the last year or two, and they've just been sitting on it for Switch 2. Maybe they did a little bit of extra work to get it on Switch 2, but I imagine most of the development has been done for Metroid Prime 4 for a couple of years. So maybe during that time they've started working on a new Donkey Kong. I mean, that'd be great, right? So maybe, who knows? I mean, I don't know. I'm not at Retro Studios. So I don't know. I mean, there's a good chance. I don't want to say there's a good chance, but there's definitely a chance that we could get another 3D Mario here, or 3D, not 3D Mario, a 2D Donkey Kong Country here soon. So maybe we get this Donkey Kong Bonanza, then we get Donkey Kong Country next year, or even the year after, would be pretty soon, and possibly we could get more Donkey Kong games on the online service, right? I mean, we could get Donkey Kong 64. They could finally drop that. They could drop like Donkey Kong King of Swig. They could drop on GameCube. They could drop like Jungle Beat, or maybe Jungle Beat was on Wii. I don't remember, but they had like Donkey Konga on GameCube, right? So there's a couple options here. Of course, if we get DS Switch Online, there's even more options for the other King of Swing game. There's some options here. I guess also, I mean, they dropped Mario, or say that they dropped Donkey Kong 94 here recently. They could always go and drop Mario versus Donkey Kong because that's a pretty big game. It's on it's on Game Boy Advance, but also it's related to Donkey Kong. So I don't know. Maybe they're trying to bring back Donkey Kong. I mean, since the Mario movie, I feel like he's been seeing quite the resurgence. So there's a good chance that Donkey Kong could really become like a A-level Nintendo character again. He could come back to his glory, right? So I definitely would be happy to see Donkey Kong be imported again because then we could get regular country releases. And I mean, who knows? Maybe we could get regular 3D games as well. I mean, it's definitely possible, right? And I mean, definitely having the Switch Online games, I think, people probably underestimate the Switch Online games and how much of an effect they can have on bringing a series back. I really do think that putting out Donkey Kong Country game, not Donkey Kong Country, sorry, Donkey Kong, like other Donkey Kong games. I mean, they put out Donkey Kong 94, they put out the Donkey Kong Land games pretty recently. So putting out little things like that can really help bring a character back into the limelight, right? I'm not saying Donkey Kong was ever like unpopular. I think everyone's always been able to recognize Donkey Kong, right? But I think Donkey Kong, in a way, was unpopular because he wasn't selling and he wasn't very important there for a long time. So maybe we could kind of break that streak and Donkey Kong could come back into the limelight, right? I would definitely be down for that. I really hope, though, that EPD Tokyo is also working on a Mario game because I would definitely trade Donkey Kong for Mario because I'm more of a Mario guy. But Donkey Kong's definitely a cool guy as well. I mean, I would say, as far as a Nintendo series, I think, my favorite's obviously Mario. My second favorite these days is probably Zelda. I think these days my third favorite's probably Donkey Kong because of the country games and stuff. I don't know, it's hard to say. I'm also a big fan of Animal Crossing. I'm a big fan of, well, I'm a big fan of the old Kirby games. I haven't played any new Kirby games, so I can't really judge that too well. And I'm also, as far as like Animal Crossing, well, I think I said Animal Crossing. What was the other one that I was going to say? I don't know. But anyway, I like Smash Brothers. I mean, there's some other ones, right? But I think Donkey Kong is definitely somewhere high on my list as far as favorite Nintendo properties. So I'm all for a Donkey Kong comeback as long as it doesn't sacrifice 3D Mario games coming out. Now, another big thing, a lot of people have been talking about it. Obviously, we have the price point. I think I talked a little bit about the $450 console last time. You heard a lot of people, and you're still hearing a lot of people complain about the price point of the console. And this is, of course, assuming that it doesn't go up. There's rumors that it could go up. Assuming the console stays at $450, that is an excellent price point. A lot of people have been very upset, saying it's overpriced and stuff. Like, I don't think these people realize that you're really getting almost the exact same performance, pretty comparable performance at least, to the PS5 and the Series X, which cost more money. Like you're paying less money for something of comparable performance, and it's a handheld. Like it's always going to be harder and more expensive to make a handheld of similar power, and that's what Nintendo's managed to do here. So I think that's actually very impressive personally. And I think it's definitely a good price. $450 is a good price point for the Switch 2. Could they have got it to 400? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not the one actually doing the math behind the scenes, seeing how much this thing's gonna cost. And as far as like, I think 500 might have been a fine price point as well. Maybe 450 sounds better because it's still below the competition. I don't know. But yeah, 450 sounds good to me. I honestly expected this thing to be 500, maybe even 550. So have it be 450, I think that's a great price point. Now, as far as the games, those we can argue a little more, right? Because the games, a lot of people have been complaining about the price of the games as well. And the games, of course, we have Mario Kart World, which Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza are on the Nintendo site for pre-order. Mario Kart World, of course, is $80, and Donkey Kong Bonanza is $70. Now, and there was that IGN rumor, right? There was the IGN speculation that physical games were going to cost $10 more. And so all over the internet for the last week and a little bit now, or, well, no, sorry, just the last week, really, people have been talking about, oh my gosh, Nintendo has $90 video games, right? And to say Nintendo has $90 video games is a bit of a stretch because based on speculation, Nintendo has one $90 video game, and it's only when it's physical. So there's a couple different things that you have to add as clarification, right? If we go based on facts that we actually know, then Nintendo has one $80 video game, which isn't quite as bad as 90. Now 80 is still a lot, right? But it's not quite as bad. Also, it's one because we have another Nintendo Switch 2 game that we know is $70. So really, Nintendo has variable prices. And I think that's what really we should be saying. And as far as having variable prices, I'm all on board for Nintendo to have variable prices. I think they probably should have variable prices. So, if a game comes out and it's like Luigi Mansion 2 HD from last year, right? Maybe that game, if it came out on Switch 2, could be $40, where something like a new Zelda game could be 80 or 90, right? I think variability on the price point is something that Nintendo could definitely benefit from. Now, do I actually think that a Nintendo remake is going to come out and cost $40? No. I don't. I think a Nintendo remake, at the very lowest, is going to be 50. I imagine it'll probably be 60. I think everything's probably going to be 60. And that's not great, right? But it definitely means that it won't hurt us quite so bad sometimes, right? There might be those games that are $80, possibly 90, but $80, right? But then there's also going to be those ones that are 70 or even 60 to kind of make it hurt a little bit less, right? So I don't think, games being $80 is quite so bad when other games are still 60 or 70. Now, it's still not great, but it's definitely a little bit better, right? So I think, it's definitely something that I'm pretty upset about, IGN spreading this speculation, and also people on the internet. I mean, it's pretty ridiculous. IGN leaks something, like this is purely speculation, right? And now all of a sudden everybody's got to run with it because they've got to find any reason to complain about Nintendo ever that they can possibly find. And all of a sudden everybody has forgotten about GTA costing $100 possibly because instead there's this new leak that Switch 2 games might cost $90. And it just seems completely ridiculous that all this blame has to be thrown at Nintendo when nobody else in the entire industry gets any flack. So it definitely upsets me as a Nintendo fan. And I mean, I'm not like one of these people that defends them on everything. There's definitely things that they do that aren't great, right? And obviously, I mean, it's no secret, right? But as far as this price point stuff, I don't think that's that bad. The console is well priced, and the games are variable, which is really what people have been asking for, to be honest. Now, yes, people haven't been asking for $80 games, but maybe the highest they could have gone is 70. Maybe that would have been a little bit better. But I don't think it's really that bad. Now, yes, it does kind of suck that Mario Kart World is going to be $80. But the good news is, for the majority of people, they don't care about physical games, so they can buy the bundle with the Switch 2, which will significantly cheapen Mario Kart World. So most people are going to be totally fine. And it's funny that you see the same people that are complaining about this price point of Mario Kart World that aren't even going to pay the full price for Mario Kart World. So I think these people need to just chill out, because I don't think it's quite as bad as they're suggesting. Definitely, it's not the best situation, but I think we're going to be okay. I think we're going to survive. As Nintendo fans, I think we'll be okay. So yes, that's a little bit about Donkey Kong Bonanza. That's a little bit about Mario Kart World. And I talk about some games I played as well. Honestly, I'm having to stop this recording every 2 or 3 minutes because I just get into a little coughing fit, or I get all sniffly and stuff. And I know that this is by far the shortest episode yet, and I'm sorry, but I really do think I have to end it here because I am exhausted just from recording an hour podcast episode. I'm exhausted, and I keep having to stop and edit this stuff out, and my voice sounds bad, and I know it, and so I think I'm going to call it a day here, and I'm going to see you all next week. Hopefully, I assume by next week I'll be feeling perfectly fine. Next week, I do actually think that I could possibly get a video out next Friday. Not Friday 2 days after you're seeing this, but a Friday the week and 2 days after you're seeing this. I think there will be a video. I'm not entirely sure. I think there will be a video on that Friday. And I think the podcast episode will still come out on Wednesday. There's a chance that the podcast episode after next will be the first one what I do on Tuesday or maybe even Monday, depending on what I decide. So here's the agenda coming up. expect a podcast episode next Wednesday. This is just to expect. I'm not entirely sure. Expect a podcast episode next Wednesday. Expect a Switch or a Mario Kart World live direct reaction next Thursday, and then possibly a podcast bonus episode also on Thursday. And then maybe a video on Friday. Expect that. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but that's what I would tell you to expect. So expect that. If you want to email the show, God, my throat is all sore. If you want to email the show with any questions and stuff, do so at notjustnintendo@gmail.com. NOTJUSTNINTEONDO or TENDO. So you know how to spell it, whatever. At gmail.com. It's in the description. Email a question or just leave a YouTube comment or a Spotify comment. And I will see you all next week. Thanks for watching, and let's roll the music.